Hello students, welcome to week 2 for COM 430 Communication Research and Methods. This week we are continuing our overview of communication research and methods as a discipline within communication studies. As you look through the week 1 agenda, you'll see that we are reading the Creswell text, chapter 6 and 7, which looks at the purpose statement and the research question and hypotheses, as well as step 1 in the Cornaglia text. This first step in the Cornaglia text helps you in looking at how to start your investigation into academic research and scholarship, or the literature as we refer to it. When you get to your watch section of the you will be watching 3 videos on developing research questions, writing effective purpose statements, and writing research questions. All of those go hand in hand. We do have 3 assignments this week. We have an activity number 2, along with discussion board number 2 with your posts due on Friday and replies due on Sunday, as well as research activity number 2. Activity number 2 asks you to create a mind map using the instructions on page 18. Problem number 2 of the Cornaglia text. Your mind map actually only needs to be turned in a written essay format, utilizing APA and formatting and citations. Essentially what you're doing is you're starting to brainstorm and collecting your thoughts on potential research topics that you would like to complete for your critical assignment. All of the activities going forward in the class will be related to developing a communication research proposal that will be due in week 8 as your critical assignment. So each activity you use can help you in developing a solid proposal that you can turn in for that final project at the end of the course. As such, research activity number 2 requires you to write 300 to 400 words, mapping out what some of your ideas are for communication research. I have included a graphic here on this slide because mind maps at times are often begin in some type of brainstorming or web, cluster web format in a visual sense. It's not required for you to put this in a visual sense, and that essentially what I want to see is after you've done that, you've kind of maybe outlined or written out or done a Venn diagram or whatever method you use to organize your thoughts, figured out some of what you want to look at, you're going to write 300 to 400 words on that. It could be a potential topic related to anything related to communication, media, interpersonal, some type of theoretical perspective. Remember, when we're looking at communication research, you need to be looking at communication phenomena and behaviors. So media effects is huge. How influential is the news? How influential are TV shows? How influential is social media? That's all communication research regarding media effects. Interpersonal communication research plans or ideas would come from the way we interact with one another in personal and interpersonal settings related to those types of theories. So for this particular assignment, you are required to essentially in 300 or 400 words, jot down your thoughts. Give me a good reflection of what you've done to go look at some of the communication research out there, letting me know that you have started to think about what your critical assignment will be and that we're moving towards that. Discussion board number 2 asks you to post 3 potential research questions or hypotheses in the forum, as well as a 200-word rationale for all 3 of them. Not a 200-word rationale for each research question, but collectively you'll turn in a cumulative 200 words defending and providing a rationale for the research questions and hypotheses that you selected. Remember, these research questions and hypotheses will help you in shaping your research project. So last week we spent some time looking at what communication research is. This week we're moving into solidifying a topic of communication research we are looking towards potentially writing about or creating a proposal for in our critical assignment. Then, after you've posted this to the discussion board forum, you will need to provide feedback to at least 3 other students about their RQs or hypothesis, and tell them, use about 200 words to do this. Remember, this is designed for you to engage enthusiastically, positively, and constructively in the forum with other students. So I'm looking forward to seeing what feedback you can give to other students that is helpful to them in this process, as well as you receiving some of that additionally. Research activity number 2. This is where you are formulating your actual purpose statement for your research proposal. So you'll start to see that these research activities, we're doing 5 of them throughout the term, along with the midterm, will help you really have almost all of the components you need for your critical assignment. So that way, when you get to week 8, when it's submitted, all you have to do is combine them and then obviously add a little more to meet the assignment requirements, but you're well on your way to completing that assignment. So what you'll do is you'll formulate one purpose statement. The Creswell text devotes an entire chapter on how to write a purpose statement, as well as there will be explicit instruction in this lecture about purpose statements as well. So explain whether your purpose statement is a question of fact, value, policy, and then justify your decision. That information in determining if it's a question of fact, value, or policy will come directly from Creswell. In addition, you'll list 2 to 3 communication concepts or specific variables related to your personal statement, your purpose statement. Additionally, include 3 RQs and hypotheses from the discussion board number 2 at the end of your purpose statement. So as you structure this, you'll write your purpose statement, which is a brief paragraph, if that, a couple of sentences, defining and stating what the purpose of your study is. Directly below that, you'll actually include your research questions and your or your hypotheses. When it comes to communication research, you can use either or. Typically, hypotheses are saved for quantitative research. That means you want to do some type of statistical analysis, and research questions are usually used in qualitative. However, quantitative also uses research questions and hypotheses. The only definitive factor is that qualitative research does not use a hypothesis. It only uses research questions. So what you're doing loosely is writing your purpose statement, about a paragraph of saying what the purpose is of your study, of your research proposal that you'll be creating, or what you'll be spending your time on this semester exploring within communication research. So if hypothetically you want to look at the influence or the effects of Instagram on teens or Musical.ly on kids, some of those apps, you'll write a purpose statement justifying that, and then include 3 research questions directly below that in this assignment. You'll then take those 3 research questions and post them to discussion board number 2 with a reflection as to why you chose those questions and the reasons you did. As you work on this, this is an evolving process. You're not locked into anything you do at this point when it comes to creating this purpose statement. However, this one, if this is something you want to stick with, can be used for your critical assignment later on. Reviewing and getting in again to some of the purposes of communication research is important at this point, as we are now starting to solidify and work on some of our topics that we may be utilizing in this course. If you're having a hard time narrowing down what you would like to talk about, it's important that you get in touch with me. I'll help you figure that out. We can meet in person, by phone, or through email or WebEx, or whatever is convenient for you to help work out some of those ideas you may be wrestling with. As such, communication research is systematic. In order for it to be effective, you need to make sure it's systematic and that it studies the process through which meaning and social reality are created and managed. So we're looking not only at social reality, but the influence that communication has on that said social reality and whatever aspect of reality we are utilizing that in. You're also, for effective communication research, examining the flow of information and the interchange of messages between individuals in different contexts. So when I said you may be looking at the effects of Instagram and the communication utilized in Instagram, you're looking there at the flow of information and the interchange of messages, the posts on Instagram, between individuals in that particular context. Effective communication also utilizes theory, as we discussed in week 1, to attempt to discuss and explain what is not and what should be. You're examining regularities in social life. It's a broad-based and interdisciplinary area with many areas to focus on and valuable for scholarly pursuits. And inductive reasoning is used quite frequently to create logical and general principles developed through observation of the communication behaviors or phenomena explored. Briefly, as we look at the research process, you'll see that one thing you need to really look at is your research question needs to address a broad-based inquiry into why this particular research topic is important. What have other people done and what have they found? Your hypotheses can come from that, and those would be specific aims to help you test or take your hypotheses where you need to go. Like I said, in any type of quantitative statistical analysis area, you can use research questions and hypotheses. In qualitative, you will not. You'll use just research questions. So when you're formulating a research question, it's important to know that this is a statement that really identifies the phenomenon to be studied. So you ask questions like, what resources are helpful to new and minority drug abuse researchers? A strong research question will pass the so what test about your communication phenomena or behavior being studied. In essence, if you were to tell me, I want to study this, this, and this, and I can say, so what does that mean? You'll be able to say, my research will show this, this, and that. So you need to be able to address what people will get out of your research as well, or have a strong defense for that. To develop a strong research question from your ideas, you should ask yourself some of the questions listed here. You need to identify a gap in the literature. So as we move into our annotated bibliography and a worksheet and our literature review, as we do in the next couple weeks, your midterm is an annotated bibliography. It's where you're looking at the literature and the sources out there about your topic. You need to identify a gap. You need to say, okay, I'm really interested in, just for the sake of argument, this Instagram influence and effects idea. What's out there about it? What is missing? What you can find that's missing is where you need to address your research proposal. So if you found that there's a lot of studies related to the use of ads and influencers and content marketing on Instagram, then that's an area that's well addressed, but maybe you didn't realize that, or you couldn't find information related on this little niche area of Instagram and the effects it has on teens or stay-at-home moms or whatever it may be. That's a gap that you can actually fill in the area of communication research that could be helpful. So does your study fill a gap? Does it lead to greater understanding of a topic that maybe has not been explored before? Has a great deal of the research been already conducted in this area? Has this study been done and needs more improvement? What type of funding sources would be interested? If you're proposing a service program, what's the target community? So as you look through some of these things and you wrestle with your ideas, your research question need and your purpose statement also needs to provide an answer to some of those ideas. Hypotheses are more specific in predicting the nature and the direction of what you want your research to go, particularly between the direction of the relationship between two variables. Usually one is independent and one is dependent. So for example, research hypotheses would be stated something like, those researchers who utilize an online grant writing tutorial will have a higher priority scores on the next grant application than those who do not. You're stating something that you're predicting. You are tying it between two variables, the researchers that utilize the online grant tutorial and those that do not. So strong hypotheses are testable. They're easily measurable through the proposal that you put forth, as well as your objectives being measurable and highly focused. Your hypotheses in a communication perspective is matched with a specific aim to a communication theory. So essentially, a hypothesis is a predictive statement about what you will find in your research, whereas a research question is a question you're posing of something that you will find out from your research. So there's a difference there. A hypothesis is something you're setting out to prove, where a research question is something, a prompt that you're posing to your audience or your reader, stating that you wish to find out through your research. So there's slight differences there in that. As we move into purpose statements, since that is an activity this week and you have a whole chapter devoted to it, it's important to see that the significance and a meaning of a purpose statement is really to establish a direction for your research. It's indicating to the reader why you want to do what you want to do and what you intend to accomplish, for that being a mouthful. So you need to be rationalizing and providing with information as to why you want to do what you plan to do in your research proposal and what significance that leads to the field of communication and what you intend to accomplish. So you're going to set the objectives, intent, and major idea for your proposal of study. Essentially, it's a very elaborated and in-depth thesis statement. So if you get back to some of the core areas of academic writing, your purpose statement in a research proposal is an elaborated and more detailed thesis statement. It's roughly a paragraph. So instead of it being a 1 or 2 sentence thesis statement, it's a purpose statement that provides the purpose and the guiding portion for your research study. This is where I'll read this and say, okay, this is where they want to go with their research proposal for their critical assignment throughout the rest of the semester. You'll see that this course is scaffolded in the way that you are working towards something in week 8 starting now. So it's important to see that fit as you work through some of these assignments. In writing an effective purpose statement, you need to utilize a declarative sentences within your paragraph that summarize the specific topic and goals of a document. They typically include the introduction to give the reader it's included within the introduction section of your proposal to give that reader that more accurate and concrete understanding of what the paper will cover. It's usually listed at in the very last paragraph or as the very last paragraph in your introduction section of a proposal. So that way the reader can say, okay, they've introduced me to this topic and at the very end they've told me this is what they plan to do. Now I know what to expect for the rest of the paper. It should be specific and precise, but also not general and broad. In concise, it needs to be about 3 sentences or so. It needs to not use any ambiguous, confusing, or vague language. It needs to be goal-oriented in terms of clearly stating the desired outcomes. Remember, in the actual proposal, the research questions will not come until after the literature review. That's the section right after the purpose statement. So you need to give a clear idea of what you plan to look at, and then after the reader reads through the literature, you'll see the research questions there. Some common introductory phrases are listed below on the slide so you can see how people typically structure the purpose statements for their papers. This is really, when it comes to this, based on your style and how you feel and how you see fit. Things to be written in the flow of your general writing style and the direction you see your paper going. But it's very important to know that it's an introductory paragraph at the very end of your introduction that's very declarative and succinct in telling the reader what you plan to accomplish within your paper. To recap, we're reading chapters 6 and 7 in the Creswell text, as well as Cornelia's text, the step 1, and the CSI text. That's the Cornelia text. You're watching some videos on how to write effective purpose statements and research questions, as well as completing activity number 2, discussion board number 2, which is due on Friday and Sunday, and research activity number 2. There's a lot of information involved in the course this week. This week is very foundational in setting up the rest of the course and how you'll proceed with the rest of the research activities and critical assignment and such. Every activity from here on out will be centered around the theme that you set up for your purpose statement on what your research topic is. Your annotated bibliography will be on sources related to what the topic was in your purpose statement, so on and so forth. So this week is very fundamental in that process and choosing and selecting a comprehensive topic that you can kind of devote around to the rest of the course. If you have any questions on that, do reach out. I am more than willing to sit down and chat with you or discuss it in whatever means necessary to help you really come up with a great topic. I'm looking forward to reading through your work and getting back that feedback to you on your week 1 assignments. Remember, all assignments are updated in Blackboard no later than Fridays. And if you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you this week. God bless.